I used to believe that the worst kind of betrayal was physical, that finding out my wife, Margot, had been with another man would be the ultimate breaking point. But I was wrong. The worst betrayal isn't what someone does in secret. It's what they do right in front of you while looking you in the eye. That night, I learned exactly where I stood in Margot's world. It was supposed to be a casual evening, just a gathering at Callahan's, the bar where we and our friends had been meeting for years. I wasn't in the mood to go, but Margot insisted. She was excited, talking about how we hadn't been out together in weeks, how we needed a break from routine. I agreed, thinking it was one of those small gestures that kept a marriage strong. I should have trusted my gut. From the moment we walked in, something felt off. The air buzzed with an energy I couldn't place, an edge of anticipation in the way our friends looked at me. I choked it up to nothing, forced a smile, and followed Margot to our usual table. She was different that night, looser, more carefree. She laughed at every joke, even the ones that weren't funny. And she wasn't just laughing, she was touching. Small brushes of her fingers against the arm of the guy sitting next to her. Subtle but deliberate. A touch that wasn't meant for me. I tried to ignore it. I told myself I was overthinking things, that I was just tired. Then someone suggested a game. Truth or dare. One of our friends, Greg, grinned, already too many drinks in. Old school rules. The game started off harmless. Silly dares, harmless questions. Then it was Margot's turn. Truth or dare? Greg asked. She smirked. Dare. A devilish look passed between Greg and the others before he leaned in, grinning. Kiss the person you find the most attractive in this bar. The laughter that followed was electric. A charged silence before everyone looked at me, waiting for the obvious. I wasn't worried. Margot would laugh, roll her eyes, and kiss me. That's what a wife does, right? But she didn't. She hesitated. A flicker of something unreadable passed through her expression before she turned and kissed someone else. Right there in front of me, in front of everyone. It wasn't just a peck, either. It was slow, intentional, the kind of kiss that didn't just humiliate me. It erased me. The bar erupted into laughter and cheers, and my stomach dropped. I barely heard the noise over the blood rushing in my ears. I don't even remember getting up. I don't remember walking out, but I remember the cold air hitting my face as I stepped outside, my hands shaking. I remember standing there staring at the pavement, trying to make sense of what just happened. Then my phone rang. It was Margot. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the button. My mind was blank, but I answered. Her voice was soft, almost amused. Are you okay? You know I love you, right? I hung up, and for the first time in my life, I truly felt what it was like to be invisible. I stood outside the bar, my breath visible in the cold night air, my fingers tightening around my phone. Margot's words echoed in my head. Are you okay? You know I love you, right? Love. Was this what love looked like? Was love supposed to feel like my chest had been cracked open and left exposed to the bitter night? I wanted to scream at her, demand an explanation, force her to admit what she had done. But I didn't. I just stood there, my thumb hovering over the call log, my mind unable to piece together the reality of what had just happened. People always talk about betrayal like it's a sudden moment, a knife to the gut, a slap to the face. But real betrayal is slow. It starts as a whisper, a glance, a hesitation, and by the time you realize what's happening, it's already over. I walked home that night. Margot didn't come after me. She didn't text, didn't call again. She was still inside, still laughing, still drinking, still carrying on as if the kiss had been nothing more than a joke. The worst part? Maybe it was a joke to her. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the city outside. The space beside me remained empty. Margot never came home. Maybe I should have expected that. Maybe I should have known that when a woman is willing to humiliate you in front of an audience, she no longer feels obligated to pretend behind closed doors. By morning, my mind was a mess. I told myself that I was being dramatic, that it was just a stupid game, that I was overreacting. But deep down, I knew better. The gut feeling that had been gnawing at me for months finally had a face. I didn't know how to confront her, so I didn't. When she finally walked through the door the next morning, sunglasses on, her hair a mess, she barely looked at me. She threw her purse on the counter and let out a long yawn before disappearing into the bathroom. No apology, no explanation, just silence. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my coffee, waiting for something, anything. Minutes passed before she finally emerged, running a hand through her tangled hair. She spotted me sitting there, and for a second, something flickered across her face. Guilt? Amusement? Couldn't tell. Then she smirked. "You look like hell," she said, pouring herself a cup of coffee as if nothing had happened. I didn't reply. I just watched her, my stomach twisting into knots. She took a sip, sighed, and finally met my gaze. "Oh, come on. You're not still upset about last night, are you?" Still. As if my feelings had an expiration date. As if my humiliation had a short shelf life. I clenched my jaw, my hands tightening around the edge of the table. "You kissed someone else, Margot. Right in front of me." She rolled her eyes. "It was a game. It didn't mean anything. You're really going to hold on to this? God, you're so sensitive sometimes." There it was. The deflection, the rewriting of reality. I had seen people talk about gaslighting before, but I had never truly felt it until that moment. She made me the problem. I was the one overreacting. I was the one making a big deal out of nothing. I wanted to scream. Instead, I laughed. A hollow, empty laugh. Margot frowned. "What's funny?" I shook my head, pushing my chair back. "Nothing. Because really, what was the point? I could argue. I could shout. I could demand she acknowledge what she had done. But what difference would it make? She had already decided that I was in the wrong. So, I did something I had never done before. I let it go. Not because I forgave her. Not because I was okay. But because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't the first time she had disrespected me. It was just the first time I noticed. And I had a sinking feeling that it wouldn't be the last. I spent the rest of the day in a strange haze, my mind caught between disbelief and reluctant acceptance. It was like I had been jolted awake from a dream that had gone on for far too long. One where I had convinced myself that Margot was still the woman I fell in love with. But reality had other plans. She carried on as if nothing had happened. By noon, she was humming in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone, sending texts between sips of coffee. I watched her from the doorway, my stomach twisting at how effortless it all seemed for her. No guilt, no remorse, just another day. "Are you still sulking?" she asked, glancing up at me with a smirk. "I swear you take things so personally." Sulking. That's what she called it. I could have exploded right then and there, demanded to know how she could be so cruel, how she could humiliate me and then act like I was the problem. But I didn't. Instead, I studied her, really studied her. The way she tapped her nails against the counter absent-mindedly. The way her lips twitched when she read a message on her phone. I had spent years loving this woman, yet in that moment, she felt like a stranger. "Where were you last night?" I finally asked, my voice eerily calm. Margot didn't even flinch. She just laughed. "Oh my God, are we really doing this? I was out with friends. You stormed off, remember?" "Yeah," I said. "And you didn't come home." She raised a brow, tilting her head like I was the one acting irrational. "I stayed at Lisa's. I figured you needed time to cool off. Cool off, right? Because I was the one who did something wrong." I nodded slowly, taking in her expression. She was good at this, twisting things, shifting blame, making it seem like I was crazy for even questioning her. But something about her answer didn't sit right. Lisa. Lisa was her best friend, sure, but she was also married with 2 kids. The idea of Margot crashing at her place in the middle of the night seemed off, especially since Lisa's husband, Mark, was the type to lock the door at 10 p.m. sharp and call it a night. I could have let it go. Maybe a few months ago I would have, but something inside me was cracking, and I needed the truth. So I texted her. I texted Lisa this morning. I lied, keeping my voice casual. She said she didn't see you last night. For a split second, Just a fraction of a moment, Margot's expression changed. It was quick, almost imperceptible, but I caught it. A flicker of hesitation, a brief tightening of her jaw. Then, just as quickly, she recovered. "Well, she must have been half asleep when you texted," she said with a shrug, turning back to her phone. "I crashed on the couch after she went to bed. You know Lisa, she sleeps like the dead." A smooth answer, practiced but not perfect, because now I knew she was lying. She wasn't at Lisa's last night. And if she wasn't at Lisa's, then where was she? A sick feeling settled in my gut, and I felt my fingers tighten into a fist at my side. For years, I had ignored the warning signs, the little inconsistencies, the unexplained absences, the way she had slowly, subtly pulled away from me while still keeping me tethered just enough to believe she cared. But now I couldn't ignore it anymore. Something was going on. And for the first time in our marriage, I wasn't just going to accept it. I was going to find out the truth. I always thought that if I were ever in this situation, if my wife was lying to me, sneaking around behind my back, I would know instantly. That I'd feel it like a gut punch, some primal instinct kicking in, warning me that the person I trusted most was betraying me. But it didn't happen like that. It happened in small moments, hesitations, deflections, excuses that seemed reasonable at the time, but in hindsight were anything but. And now, standing in my own kitchen watching Margot casually sip her coffee, my stomach twisted as the weight of her lies pressed down on me. I didn't confront her right away. I knew better than that. Margot was sharp. She was the kind of person who could turn any argument against you, who could make you doubt your own memory. If I went at her without proof, she would twist the story until I was the bad guy. I had seen her do it to other people. Friends, coworkers, even family members. She had a way of rewriting reality, making people question their own sanity. And I wasn't about to fall into that trap. So I played along. I acted like I believed her story, nodded when she told me she stayed at Lisa's, even though I knew she hadn't. I let her roll her eyes and laugh at how paranoid I was. And all the while I was making a plan. That night, when she went to bed early, claiming she had a headache, I waited. I lay there beside her, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft sound of her breathing. Was she really asleep? Or was she just pretending? I didn't know anymore. But what I did know was that I couldn't ignore this feeling in my gut. So I got up. I moved carefully, making sure not to wake her as I slipped out of bed. My heart pounded as I walked to the living room, grabbing my phone. I hesitated for a moment before typing out a message to Lisa. "Hey, just wanted to say thanks for letting Margot crash at your place last night. I was kind of out of it, so I didn't get all the details. Hope she wasn't too much of a handful." I stared at the screen, waiting. A minute passed, then another. Finally, the 3 little dots appeared. "Lisa." What? She wasn't here. I felt my stomach drop. Even though I knew she had lied, seeing it in writing made it real. Lisa sent another message before I could even process the first one. "Lisa, wait, she told you she was with me? When?" I swallowed hard, my fingers tightening around my phone. Last night. She said she stayed over because I needed time to cool off." There was a long pause. Then Lisa sent something that made my blood run cold. "Lisa, I haven't seen Margot in over a week." I sat down slowly, the weight of it all settling on my chest. She hadn't just lied about where she was. She had lied about everything. She had used Lisa as a cover without even bothering to let her know. So, where the hell was she? I took a deep breath, my mind racing. I had 2 choices. I could wake her up right now, confront her, demand to know the truth. But I already knew how that would go. She would deny it, twist it, make me the crazy one. Or I could wait, be patient, gather evidence, and when the time came, I could make damn sure she didn't talk her way out of it. For the first time in our marriage, I wasn't just going to let this slide. I was going to find out exactly who my wife really was. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Margot kissing that guy in the bar. I saw the way she smirked at me the next morning. The way she casually lied about staying at Lisa's like it was nothing. And the worst part, I saw all the moments before that, the ones I had ignored. The late nights, the unexplained phone calls, the way she had started dressing up more when she went out with the girls. I had brushed it off as normal. People change, right? Marriages go through phases. But now I realized the truth. I had been a fool. I spent most of the night sitting in the dark, gripping my phone, staring at the message from Lisa. I haven't seen Margot in over a week. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted there to be a reasonable explanation, but deep down, I knew there wasn't one. When the sun finally came up, I had made my decision. I wasn't going to ask her where she had been. That would be pointless. Instead, I was going to find out for myself. Margot had a routine. She went to work at the same time every day, came home at the same time, except for the nights when she had plans. Today, she had no plans. At least none she had told me about. I waited until she left for work. Then I followed her. I know how that sounds, like I was some paranoid husband who had lost his mind. But at that point, I didn't care. I needed the truth, and if she wasn't going to give it to me, I was going to take it. She drove like everything was normal, stopping for coffee, tapping her fingers on the wheel to whatever song was playing. I kept my distance, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. But then something happened. She didn't go to work. She took a different exit, one that didn't lead to her office, one that led to a part of town we rarely visited. My pulse pounded in my ears as I watched her car pull into the parking lot of a small, nondescript building. A motel. A cheap one, the kind that didn't ask questions. I felt my entire body go numb. I watched as she parked, casually stepped out of her car, and walked toward one of the rooms like she had done it 1,000 times before. No hesitation, no nervous glances. She had done this before. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a one-time thing. This was planned. I sat there for what felt like forever, gripping the steering wheel, my mind racing. What was I supposed to do? Burst in there? Confront her? See it for myself? My stomach twisted at the thought. Instead, I forced myself to breathe, forced myself to think. I needed more than just my own eyes on this. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I picked up my phone and made a call. Not to Margot, not to Lisa, but to someone who could help me make sure that when I confronted her, there would be no way for her to lie her way out of it. And that was when everything changed. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to hire a private investigator. That always seemed like something out of a movie, something desperate people did when they had no other options. But sitting in my car outside that dingy motel, gripping my phone so tightly my fingers ached, I realized that I had already lost control. I couldn't just go in there and demand answers. I needed proof, not just for my own sanity, but because I knew how Margot operated. If I confronted her without solid evidence, she'd twist the story, make herself the victim, and somehow I'd end up apologizing. That was her talent, rewriting reality. So I made the call. The PI's name was Walter. He had been recommended to me by a guy at work, someone who had gone through something similar. He's discreet, my coworker had said, and he doesn't mess around. That was exactly what I needed. Walter picked up after 2 rings. His voice was gruff, businesslike. I told him my situation, stripped down just the facts. My wife, the motel, the suspicion. He didn't ask unnecessary questions. "I'll take care of it," he said simply. "Give me the room number and I'll get you what you need." I didn't know how he worked so fast, but within an hour, I had photos. They arrived in a text, one after another. Grainy, but clear enough. Margot, a man I didn't recognize. The two of them entering the motel room together, her laughing, her arm casually brushing against his like it was second nature. And then the worst part, the final nail in the coffin. A picture of them leaving the room 2 hours later, her hair slightly tousled, her blouse buttoned wrong, his hand resting lightly on the small of her back. I felt sick. I had expected this, had known it deep down, but seeing it with my own eyes, that was something else entirely. I sat there in my car staring at the photos, my mind completely blank. What was I supposed to do now? Go home and pretend I didn't know? Wait for her to lie to my face again? No, I wasn't going to let her get away with this. For years, I had let her take control of our marriage. Let her dictate the rules, decide what was worth discussing, and what was better swept under the rug. But this wasn't something she could explain away. I wasn't the fool she thought I was anymore. So I waited. I watched as Margot drove away from the motel, her expression casual, like she had just finished running errands. And I followed her. She didn't go back to work. She didn't go home. She went straight to a cafe, sat at a small corner table and pulled out her phone. And then, just as I had suspected, she called me. I watched her lips move as my phone vibrated in my hand. I let it ring. Then I answered. "Hey babe," she said, her voice smooth, effortless. "Just checking in. How's your day going?" I could barely breathe. I stared at her from my car just a few feet away, watching the way she sipped her coffee, completely unaware that I was right there. And that was the moment I knew. This wasn't just a betrayal. This was routine. She had done this before. She had lied so easily, so flawlessly that it made me wonder how many times I had fallen for it. And that was when something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I was going to let her dig herself deeper. And then when she least expected it, I was going to take everything away from her. I sat in my car watching her, watching the way she twirled her straw in her drink, the way she leaned back in her chair, her expression unreadable. The same woman who had kissed another man in front of me just nights ago. The same woman who had walked into that motel room without hesitation, as if it was just another errand on her to-do list. And now she was here calling me, pretending like everything was fine. I could barely hear her voice through the phone. I wasn't listening to her words anymore. I was listening to how she spoke. The ease, the confidence, the way she sounded exactly the same as she always had, like nothing in our marriage had changed. But something had changed me. I had spent years believing in Margot's version of our life together, that we were happy, that the rough patches were normal, that the distance growing between us was just life getting in the way. But now, sitting in my car, staring at her from just across the street, I realized the truth. She had never been distant. She had just been elsewhere. I didn't answer her right away. I let her talk, let her fill the silence with small talk about her day, about nothing at all. She asked if I wanted her to pick up anything for dinner, like she was doing me some kind of favor. That was what got me the most. The audacity. She wasn't even trying to cover her tracks. She had made a habit of this, lying to my face so many times that it had become second nature. Finally, I spoke. My voice was calm, measured. "Where are you right now?" She didn't hesitate. "Oh, I just grabbed a coffee. Thought I'd stop for a little break before heading home." The lie came so naturally, so effortlessly that it sent a shiver down my spine. I looked directly at her. I could see the slight smile on her lips, the way she stirred her drink lazily. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to walk straight into that cafe, sit down across from her, and watch the color drain from her face when she realized I had been watching her this whole time. I wanted to see the moment the truth caught up to her, the moment she realized she had finally lost control. But that would be too easy. And after everything she had done, she didn't deserve easy. Instead, I played along. "That sounds nice," I said, keeping my tone light. "You deserve a break." She exhaled, almost like she was relieved. "I know, right? Work has been insane." Work. That was almost funny. I let her finish her coffee. I let her sit there and relax, completely unaware that I knew exactly where she had been an hour ago. Then I watched as she got into her car and drove home, humming along to the music like nothing in the world was wrong. I didn't follow her this time. I didn't need to. Instead, I drove in the opposite direction, back to the motel. I wanted to see it with my own eyes. When I arrived, the parking lot was mostly empty, but there was something about the place. The way the neon light flickered, the peeling paint on the door frames that made my skin crawl. I walked up to the front desk, my heart pounding in my chest. The guy behind the counter barely looked up from his phone. He was young, disinterested, the kind of person who had probably seen far worse things than a cheating wife sneaking around. I didn't know what I was expecting when I spoke, but when the words came out, they surprised even me. "My wife was here earlier," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "She left something in the room." It wasn't exactly a lie. The guy looked me up and down, then shrugged. "What room?" I had seen the number in the photos Walter had sent me. I said it without hesitation. He barely even thought about it before tossing me a keycard. 5 minutes, he muttered, going back to his phone. I swallowed hard and walked toward the door. The second I stepped inside, the air felt different. It smelled like cheap cleaning spray, masking something else underneath. The bed was made, but barely, like someone had straightened it in a hurry. The trash can was empty. But then my eyes landed on the nightstand. A receipt for 2 coffees, dated from this morning. That was the moment it hit me. She had been here today, not just last night. Not just a mistake, not just one bad decision. She had been here with him again. That's when I realized this wasn't just an affair. This was her real life. And I was the lie. I stood in that motel room for a long time. The stale air pressing down on me like a weight I had carried for years without realizing it. The receipt on the nightstand, the unmade bed, the sheer normality of it all. It hit me like a brick wall. This wasn't some moment of weakness, some single mistake she would regret. This was her life, and I had been nothing more than an afterthought. But as I stared at that receipt, something inside me shifted. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad anymore. I just felt free because for the first time in a long time, I saw things clearly. Margot had made her choices, and now I was going to make mine. I didn't need to scream at her, to demand answers, to beg for explanations that wouldn't change a thing. The truth was right in front of me, and it was so simple I almost laughed. I was done. Not in a dramatic storm out the door way. Not in the way she probably expected. Full of rage and accusations. Desperate to make her feel guilty. No, I was really done. I left the motel room without a second glance, tossing the key card onto the front desk as I walked out. The sun had started to set, casting a warm glow over everything. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I inhaled a deep breath of fresh air without feeling like it was suffocating me. I didn't go home right away. I drove. No destination, no plan, just the open road and the hum of the engine beneath me. It was peaceful, calming, and somewhere between 1 mile marker and the next, I realized something important. I had spent years trying to make my marriage work, trying to be patient, trying to be understanding, trying to be enough. But I had never stopped to ask myself the most important question. Did I even want this anymore? The answer was so obvious now. No, I deserved better. And so, by the time I pulled back into my driveway, my decision was already made. Margot was home, curled up on the couch, scrolling through her phone like it was just another normal night. She barely glanced at me as I walked in. "Hey!" she muttered, like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't been with someone else just hours ago. "I was thinking we could order takeout tonight." I almost laughed. Instead, I walked over to the coffee table, placed a single manila envelope down in front of her, and met her eyes for the first time in what felt like forever. "What's this?" she asked, sitting up, a small frown creasing her face. I didn't answer. I just smiled. Not bitterly, not angrily, just peacefully. Because inside that envelope was my way out. The divorce papers already signed. Margot stared at them for a long moment, blinking like she couldn't quite process what she was looking at. Then finally, she looked up at me. "You're serious?" she whispered. I nodded. "Yeah." 1,000 emotions flashed across her face. Anger, shock, maybe even regret. But none of it mattered anymore because I was already gone. Not physically, not yet, but emotionally, mentally. I had left her behind the second I walked out of that motel room. She opened her mouth like she wanted to argue. But for once, I didn't care what she had to say. I didn't care about her excuses, her justifications, or her regrets. This wasn't her decision anymore. It was mine. I turned away, walking toward the bedroom to grab my bag, the one I had packed in my car earlier, just in case. She called my name, her voice softer now, almost desperate. But I didn't stop. I just smiled to myself as I grabbed my keys and walked right back out the door. For the first time in years, I wasn't trapped. I wasn't waiting for things to get better. I wasn't hoping for someone else to change. I was free. And God, it felt good.